One of the most common questions I get is, I want to build a raised bed. What kind of soil do I put in there? What do I fill it with? I'm going to give you my thoughts on the matter, and I'm going to give you my exact recommendations for what I use in my raised bed. Stay with me now. So after you've decided on what materials you're going to use to build up the base and the walls of your raised bed, the first year, what you're probably going to want to do is source some local soil, some local garden soil from, look up garden centers in your area. I think the benefit of this is twofold. Number one, you're benefiting a small business, most likely a local business, but you're also, ask them if the soil has come from the area, okay? Because that's going to give you a leg up already to start, because it's going to be the kind of soil that's got the bacteria and the microfungi in there that is going to be beneficial to your local ecosystem. So that's very important to start out. Then if you can source some local compost, and it's good clean compost, you know, you have reason to believe that it's fairly organic and doesn't have any too much plastics and things like that in there, add some of that to it as well. So that's your first year, okay? You're going to add, you're going to do a ratio of probably, I personally would recommend, if you got good garden soil from a local center, I'd probably go 4/5 that. So four parts of the local soil and then 1 part of locally sourced compost. And then you might add a little bit on top. And then I do a layer of Cypress bark mulch. Now, that's your first year. Now, what you're going to see here, I'm going to show you something in a second about over time, the soil that you put in there is going to have to be replaced for a couple of reasons. Erosion, pests digging around in there, but the number one reason why you're going to lose some soil over time is that as plants grow, they're actually taking material from the soil to grow. That's, you know, they're using the organic matter in there, and so you'll see it start to diminish. I'm going to flip the camera here in a minute, and I'm going to show you the difference between a garden bed that I just replenished and a garden bed that I'm about to replenish. And then I will tell you exactly what I put in my garden beds every couple of years just to kind of replenish the soil and the nutrients. So this garden bed here I worked with about 3 or 4 weeks ago, just kind of bringing it back up, getting it, replenishing what was in there. I'll show you the second garden bed in a minute and show you the difference here. But what I want you to see is that I like for my garden bed soil and mulch to come up to about 1 inch from the top. Okay, you can go lower. It's personal preference. You know, just kind of do what works for you and what you can afford to do. But I've got some stuff in here. There's radishes and oregano and rosemary and some garlic in the background. I'm going to take you a little walk through here. This is ready to go. I can plant into this as soon as the weather's warm enough, or I could do a winter crop right now. And let's do a little walk through here. I just want to kind of show you what it looks like when it's done, and then I'm going to show you what the other one looks like that needs to be fixed. Now I was just pulling weeds there. That's what that spot is. So let me show you the other one now. Okay, so this is the garden, the second garden bed, and I'm going to work with this today. Show you how I fix this. But look how much is lost over here. Okay, we're down about 3 or 4 inches, and that's just because over time here, as plants have grown and we've had some erosion and pests have dug around in there, I've lost soil. So it's just time to replace it. This is part of, you know, managing a raised bed. Every couple of years is what I do. Okay, because mine goes down about 2 feet, maybe 1.5 feet, maybe about 1.5 feet. So I don't have to do it every year. I've got some room to work with, but it's due. It's time to do it. So what I'm going to do here is, first I'm going to pull back as much of this mulch as I can. Don't have to get it all. It's fine. And then I'll show you what step 2 is. Okay. And these little plants in here that are still kind of hanging in there, I'm just going to work around them. That's no problem. They're still alive. It's actually still producing fruit, so I'm just going to work around them, and veggies, I'm sorry. Just going to work around them, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, and then I'll show you step 2. All right, so first step here is we're gonna pull back as much of this mulch as we can without overthinking it too much. You can see it's not too hard, right? This is why I like working with mulch. It protects the soil, Actually keep some moisture in there, you know. In South Carolina here we get some pretty intense heat, and that can be a bit of a pain. So you can dry out your plants pretty quick and burn them, so it helps with that. But mulch, whether you use cypress bark mulch or something else, it actually makes it easier to weed too, right? So when you're pulling up weeds out of mulch, it like pretty much just plucks right out, as opposed to having to dig it out. Okay, so that's another advantage of it. And to some extent, I like cypress bark mulch because it actually helps a little bit with some of the pests. It gives a little bit of pest control, a little bug control there. Some bugs don't like it. So I'm going to gather this up. I'll throw this in the compost pile, and then I'll go hit the other side, and then I'll show you the finished product. All right. So I finished pulling that back, and just want to kind of give you a little walk through here, show you what it looks like after you pull back all that mulch. So you got some good soil here. Definitely not completely devoid. It's not devoid of nutrients. And I don't know if you can see that little guy there. That's actually not a weed. I found him trying to poke up through the mulch. It's dill. So we're gonna give him a chance to see if he can be a survivor. So just kind of see what I've done there. Okay, so we're going to take a little break here. I'm going to go grab some lunch. When I come back, I'm going to show you step 2, how to start to replace what you've taken out, okay, or what the plants have taken out. Obviously, over a couple of years, I've also lost some nutrients in here. Now, this is not, again, like I said, it's not devoid of nutrients, but it could use a little bit of help. So we're going to add some of that back in. I'm going to show you exactly which products I use. Stay with me now. Okay, so the first, step 2, the first layer, we're going to build a little bit of a cake here. So you think about when you're building a cake, you put things in layers. First thing I do here is we're going to throw in, for that whole garden bed there, which is, oh gosh, I think it was like 12 or 13 feet long when I built it. I'm guessing. I'm going to do about 10 bags of topsoil for me. You know, you just kind of measure this out and figure out how many you need. This stuff here is just like the base layer of that cake. Then don't worry too much again about the ratio. Gardening is supposed to be fun. I'm going to stop overthinking everything. All right. One more should do it. And then right on top of that topsoil, I'm going to just add a couple little scoops of the peat moss, and spread that around a little bit. That helps with the moisture retention, and it's really healthy for the soil. So that's going to be step 2. Let me show you how I do that right now. And other people will tell you different ratios to do on this stuff. I just kind of eyeball it. This is what's worked for me for over 10 years. I subscribe to the keep it simple, you know, keep it simple, stupid method. It's why overthink things? This works. You know, somebody else might tell you, you gotta have 5% blood meal, you gotta have 5% bone meal. Well, you could do that if you want, but I'm showing you what I do, which is pretty simple. So for the peat moss here, we're just gonna, what I do is I just kind of throw some scoops on there. A little bit of this goes a long way in my experience. If you do container gardening, you're using potting soil, you've got peat moss in there, usually, because it's so good at water retention and keeping the soil nice and moist. So again, Stop overthinking this, right? We're not measuring, we're just kind of mixing. We're making a cake by hand or by sight, not by measurements. Now my wife, who's a baker, would not agree with that. She would say you have to measure it. She's right. So it's not a good analogy. Okay, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to just mix that topsoil and peat moss together. We're not tilling. I'm not a fan actually of tilling your garden, except maybe in that first year when you're first planting. But we'll talk about that in another day and why that's can actually do more damage over time to your garden than can be beneficial. So we're just kind of mixing it up a little bit. Again, keep it simple, don't overthink it. Be a perfect ratio of anything. As Bob Ross would probably say, this is your garden. You can do anything you want. And we don't have mistakes, we have happy little accidents. There we go. That's right. And this is gonna finish up step 2. And that whole process there took me only a few minutes. It's not too intensive on work. If you've got a back issue or a knee issue, you might need a little help with it, but it's a nice way to get a little exercise without overdoing it. Step 3 now, the next layer in our cake, I'm going to throw a little compost in here, and this is going to be, if we're looking at our bed here now, this is probably going to be, in the end, this will be about 2 inches below the top of the soil, okay? So right where the roots are going to start to be forming and soak up some good nutrients. So I'm a fan of this one, black cow manure, and mushroom compost. Okay, I always look for that somewhere on the label that it says that it's okay for your fruits and vegetable gardens. Basically, we're going to do the same thing that you just saw me do with the peat moss here. So I'll show you that real quick, but same thing, very, very thin layer. Don't overthink it with your measurements, just kind of spread it around, and then you're going to take the, and then you're going to mix it all in together again. Alright, so step 4 is, this is basically what I would consider the top layer of my soil. Okay, so what I do is I take a little bit of raised bed soil and I'm going to mix it with Miracle-Gro garden soil with moisture control. Again, being here in South Carolina in the summertime, it's going to get over 100 degrees and our soil can get really baked and hot. So anything I can do to help mine not get too dried out and not have to rely on, a sprinkler system is the better for me. So these are the 2 products I use. I mix them together just like you just saw with the mushroom compost and the cow manure. Just kind of layer it on there, spread it around, and that's basically all we're doing. Okay, and last step here is I do a thin layer of Cypress mulch on top of my garden. I've been doing this for years. It does not leach nitrogen from the soil. That's a myth that was going around, but the permaculture groups have proven that that does not happen. So Cypress mulch just helps to keep some soil, some water retention in the soil, keep it nice and moist. Helps with keep some of the bugs down. It looks nice, and it makes it much easier to weed. Pretty much just plucking the weeds out of the garden instead of having to dig them out. So we're going to add a thin layer of that. I'm going to spread it out, and then we are just about wrapping up. And folks, that's pretty much it. As you can see, this bed is ready to be planted into. If you can look in a little bit close there, remember when we started it was down several inches. It's now about ½ inch from the top. It's going to sink down a little bit, so that should be right about where we want it. And with all that work we were doing, I don't know if you could see that there on the camera, we managed to keep the little dill guy there, so he should be okay. We'll see if we get a hard frost again. Might kill him, but hopefully he makes it. The mulch will certainly help with that. But that's pretty much it. I know it's not completely level, but with a little bit of rain and a little bit of sinking, that should work itself out. And then next time I come through, I might just straighten it out if it's really lopsided or whatever. Folks, if you found this helpful, please remember to subscribe. Give me a like down below. That tells me you want more gardening videos. Until next time, happy gardening. All right, so we are checking out. Look at that. That is awesome. I can't wait to put that in my garden bed.